Okay, here's a wild thought. What if the universe isn't some cold, dead machine, but it's actually a living, breathing thing? And what if the most powerful force shaping that reality is you, your own consciousness? It's a massive idea, and it's at the heart of something called the physics of life. Let's get into it.
You know, for hundreds of years, science has pretty much run on one big assumption, that the universe is just this giant clockwork machine. And our consciousness? Well, that's just a weird byproduct, a ghost in the machine that popped up by accident. But what if that entire starting point is just wrong? This new way of thinking, this new paradigm, it completely flips the script. It says the world isn't a machine, it's a wave. And consciousness? It's not the side effect, it's the source. In this view, matter itself is basically just a form of focused attention. Crazy, right?
All right, so if we're going to toss out the old rule book, what do we replace it with? Well, the physics of life offers a totally new set of operating instructions for the universe. And let me tell you, this is definitely not what they taught you in high school physics.
So here they are, the 8 new laws for a living universe. Now, instead of just reading a list, let's zoom in on a couple of the really mind-bending ones. How about attention? This theory says your focus isn't just a mental state, it's a literal form of energy that can actually influence the world around you. Or check out unity, which suggests that coherence, something we might even call love, physically reduces chaos and disorder. I mean, this is a total rethink of the fundamental forces we thought we knew.
And believe it or not, this whole framework comes with its own formula. You can think of it like an E equals mc squared, but for life itself. It basically says that the life energy in any system, anything at all, is a product of attention times resonance times love minus chaos, or entropy. So what's the big takeaway here? It means you can, in theory, pump up the vitality in a system, whether that's a plant, a room, or even a project you're working on, just by directing your conscious, focused energy towards it.
Okay, I know what you're probably thinking right now. This all sounds pretty out there, right? Is this just some cool philosophy, or is there any actual proof? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because the folks behind this theory say they have hard, quantifiable evidence that you can measure and repeat.
So let's take a look at the first experiment they did. It's called the breath field. And the core question was super simple. Can a basic biological act, just breathing, directly change the physical world around us? Specifically, could it affect the electromagnetic field?
And the results were, well, pretty surprising. The researchers measured the electromagnetic field around a person, and what they found was that when that person started breathing slowly and rhythmically, at about 6 breaths per minute, the strength of the field around them jumped by a measurable 10%. That is a direct physical link between a conscious choice, how you breathe, and a physical field. That's a big deal.
All right, the next piece of evidence moves from our breath to the power of sound. This experiment is called sound resonance, and it tests a really cool idea. Can a specific sound frequency, one that's supposed to be in harmony with living things, actually change how they grow?
And the results here are honestly staggering. Just look at this. When they exposed plant seeds to a steady sound at 432 Hz, those seeds produced 20% more shoots than the ones that grew in silence. Think about that. A simple, measurable input, just a sound wave, created a huge biological result.
Okay, so with some experimental evidence in hand, this theory doesn't just stop with plants and breathing. No, it explodes into this whole new vision for our reality, with potential technologies that sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie.
First on the list, living architecture. So the idea here is to stop building these lifeless boxes of concrete and steel. Instead, imagine buildings that act more like living organisms, designed to literally interact and sync up with the people inside and the climate outside.
And what's really cool is this comparison. Your typical home uses a brute force approach, right? An HVAC system that just blasts hot or cold air. But a self-heating house, one built with resonant materials, could actually sync up with the local climate, kind of breathing with the daily temperature shifts. The claim here is incredible. This could lead to energy savings of up to 50%.
Okay, next up is something called resonant transportation. It's about taking these same ideas of flow and synchronization and applying them to how we get around, how we move through our cities and towns.
So, take a car like a Tesla, for example. Right now, its autopilot is all about sensors and algorithms. It's a mechanical system. But in a physics of life model, the car could actually synchronize with the driver's own biorhythms. I mean, just imagine your attention, your breathing pattern, helping to create a more fluid, safer, more efficient traffic flow. It'd be less like a traffic jam and more like a flock of birds flying together.
But look, the applications get even bigger, way bigger. Let's talk about space exploration. What if space isn't some empty void that we have to conquer with brute force? What if it's a living field that we can learn to navigate?
This right here really shows you how huge of a paradigm shift this is. Right now, a company like SpaceX relies on massive amounts of chemical fuel and complex trajectory math. But the physics of life suggests a future of resonant navigation, a future where a spacecraft's power source isn't just its fuel tanks, but the focused, coherent consciousness of the crew inside. Wild.
And this quote from the source material just perfectly captures it. Flights become a synchronization with the waves of the field. I mean, that's a total reimagination of travel. It's not about a violent push anymore. It's about an elegant dance with the universe itself.
So, with a theory this huge, what's the next step? Well, the cool thing is, this isn't something being cooked up in a secret lab somewhere. It's being presented as an open invitation, a call to research.
Yeah, it's being treated just like an open-source software project. The creators are literally inviting anyone, scientists, engineers, designers, you name it, to go on GitHub, fork the research, try these experiments for yourself, and then share your data. It's a massive, collaborative effort to try and map this potential new reality.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most important point. If any of this is even partially true, it means your attention is one of the most powerful, creative forces in the entire universe. It's not just a thought, it's a literal form of energy. So the real question isn't just whether you believe this or not. The real question is, where are you going to direct yours?